it'll be starting shortly. It saves me from editing it. Let's see. Recording and transcription have started. Fantastic. So, hi, good afternoon. This is David Perlman, and our co-host this week is Dr. Lane from
Ithaca College.
He's not a doctor. He just pretends every once in a while. So this week with us on Microsoft Office Hours, November 12th, is Kristin Horvath, who is one of our super Surface specialists. And also, we feel honored to have Troy Hahn here, who's the CIO for Queens College at CUNY. And we're going to be learning a little bit about their digital transformation using some Microsoft devices and a bunch of other things. So I'll turn it over to our presenters for the next 25 minutes or so, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you coming on.
Sounds good, Dave. Appreciate it. This is like coming into a really tight group and like being the new kid. So a little nervous, but you guys are a lot of fun. This has been fun so far. So I totally need to join these more often because I even learned a thing or two. You get stuck in the hardware world sometimes and you forget what's going on with everybody else. But that's one of the main reasons I think why Dave asked me to join. Oftentimes we find over in the hardware world that our customers don't realize how beautifully our software and our hardware play. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I do not want to come off like a salesperson today by any means, even though that is in my title, not technically. And super, I'm still going to use super from now on, Dave, because it technically says SR in front of my title, and I've never thought to use super. That's even better. Senior makes me sound old. So awesome. Quick background on me. I have been on the Surface team now for a little over 3 years. My background is in education. I actually came from the classroom. I was a K-12 teacher for 10 years. And so I'm passionate about technology and education to the nth degree, and have really enjoyed being a part of the Microsoft team. Let's see, I live in South Carolina. I'm based in Greenville, South Carolina, but I technically cover New York, New Jersey, good handful. Even found out today I cover parts of Connecticut. So up and down the East Coast, and thrilled to see so many people on this call today. So hopefully we can connect afterwards. There are 9 of me across the country. Hopefully at some point you've worked with one of my Surface specialists, one of my teammates. If not, let's connect with me. Dave, you had your hand up? No, we're good.
We are good. I was going to say if there's 9 of you, just think of what we could get done.
Seriously, there's 9. Back up. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So I think more than anything, and I do have a couple slides, a couple visuals I want to show you. What I find more than anything when I'm talking with customers is that there's a misconception about Surface. And if schools or individuals bought Surface, they might have purchased Pro 3, Pro 4, first generation Surface Pro running Windows right now. That's awesome, Steve. That's fantastic. I was going to ask if anybody has an RT still in production right now. But what we're finding now is the misconception about that Surface is still stuck in the Pro mode and that Pro is the only device that we sell. And that is not true. So I'm going to share my screen with actually our family of devices here and get this out of the way here so that you can actually see in our family of devices. I love it, Andy. It's awesome. So what we have today, actually, and I'll kind of show you, we've updated our portfolio actually through this whole pandemic, which has been amazing. But we have a device literally for everyone now, which is pretty impressive. And having been a former educator, being able to know that I have options for devices has been phenomenal. And what we've seen in both the K-12 and the higher ed space, because I work with both, is this need for a device that is going to be able to do everything, provide mobility, and even more so as of late, provide that connectivity anytime, anywhere, even when you're remote and when you're home. And so we've seen a huge uptick in the request for LTE devices. We do have several devices within our family that provide LTE. So I'll make sure I share this with you guys afterwards. I'm not going to go through every single one of them because I don't have time. I honestly want Troy to be able to tell his story because he tells a really real story about how he's applied our devices in their environment. But want to make sure you're aware of certainly the what I like to call the client devices, the devices for our users, and then also our devices that are amazing for collaboration. So been having a lot of conversations right now around Surface Hub. And I have some updates for you guys of where we are with Hub. But what I really want to focus on are the latest updates of devices that we've had over the past couple of months. We recently just introduced, and I can Vanna White for you. I have my Surface Laptop Go in hand, but we just introduced this device back in October. And beautiful compromise between performance and price. And that's really what we've been asked for by customers on a regular basis. But an i5 processor starting at $549.99 and then going configs all the way up. What we're finding is that customers are testing this out and saying, you know what, this is an awesome device for me to use on a daily basis. Whether you're in the classroom or whether on the IT side, this is certainly not a developer device by any means, but an everyday device. It's absolutely perfect for that use case. And we are finding that a lot of our higher eds are asking to test this out for their information. Dave, I'll get to Duo in just a second. Hang on. And don't ask me for a Duo, but I do have that in hand too. I'll bring that out in just a second. Want to also make sure I update you guys on ProX. If you're a fan of ARM chip devices, this is our ARM device, our only ARM device within the within the Surface family. We recently updated and continue to update from a Windows perspective, but we recently updated SKUs for ProX on our higher end devices, and coming very, very soon to all of our Windows insiders, being able to provide x64 emulation on Windows on ARM. And that'll make a huge performance upgrade to our ProX users, but the form factor alone on ProX looks to our Pro device. But some of the cool things that a lot of people have been excited about is that the pen is actually built. I'm actually presenting for my ProX right now. The pen is actually built into the keyboard. You can actually store it inside the keyboard and charge it inside the keyboard, because probably the number one complaint about the pen is that people lose it all the time. So I'll make sure I share this with you too. If you follow where we are in developing on ARM, I'll make sure I send you some of the latest info there. We recently introduced our 85-inch hub in addition to our 50-inch hub. 85 will be available in January for shipment. You can order it now. I could speak for 90 minutes, minimum on hub technology. But if you're not familiar with leveraging Hub for collaboration, please reach out. Let's have a discussion. I'm just blown away with the response and the request for Hub. We actually just recently sold our largest. It wasn't my deal, but I certainly am supportive of my teammate down in Alabama, the community college system in Alabama. 265 hubs they purchased for collaboration across the community college system because they were fully invested in the need for a collaboration tool for their professors in all of their classrooms. So happy to share more about that, but that's really been a hot topic, and Troy could even probably share with you about how he would potentially leverage Hub. And then, yes, our beautiful Duo, Surface Duo. I had mine around here, and I must have been in the other room. I apologize. Dual screen, Android-based platform. Amazing form factor and device. Really bringing, we started this form factor, and you can see that we've had several others replicate this after this. But being able to have this device in hand as truly a productivity tool. It's not a phone. It does have calling capabilities, but it truly is a productivity tool. Probably one of the coolest things that I can do with it is be able to sit on the couch and be on a Teams meeting, but also be taking notes at the same time without having to have my laptop on my lap. So if you haven't checked out Duo yet, please consider that. And if you have a really awesome use case, we can get you demos of any of these devices for you guys to trial. Would love to be able to share those with you guys and get them in hand, because I can't travel right now. I can't come and see you. I can't bring these on site. So we're sending loaners out left and right. I'm gonna pause there for just a second. Any quick questions on any of those four devices I talked about? You guys, I'm trying to keep up with the chat at the same time.
So I didn't see any questions out there,
yeah,
Kristin, but what I did see is a want for me to get a Duo. So did somebody from the product group send that to you, or did you actually go and get that? I got
for me, Someone from the product group. So all of the Surface field sellers get one to test so that we can be relevant to our customers.
Well, I love that. I love that. Apparently, I'm not relevant again. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, you
Steve.
can join us on the Surface team, Dave.
Oh, man.
That's what you have me for. I know. The only thing awesome. I don't have, and I'm not trying to brag here, but the only thing I don't have is a hub. Don't have a hub in my house. Otherwise, I'd totally be presenting from that. We are also bargaining for a hub.
Wow, that would be pretty awesome to have.
Fantastic. So I want to make sure too, and I'll send all this over to you guys. We've done a lot of updates as of late with Hub in terms of functionality, but this gives you a little bit of better understanding on scale. We've also updated the Windows 10 experience, the team experience. This is a special build made for our Hub specifically. I think the biggest update to Windows 10 Team Edition, if you follow Hub knowledge, is the adding of Edge on Chromium to be able to leverage multiple platforms. So for example, if you guys are also, and I would hate to hear that this is happening, but if you're leveraging Teams and Zoom, or if you're on the verge and you're looking at, you're using Zoom to move to Teams, everybody's on Teams right now anyway, so it doesn't matter. But we're opening up our platforms to make it much easier to use multiple collaboration platforms. We also are able now to configure Hub to Windows 10 Pro and Enterprise as needed. So we have a lot of users who actually, we had Hubs shipped directly to professors' homes, and they're actually using that as their main device. And so we can configure it as such for collaboration. I also wanted to, Dave and I were talking about this because he's heard me on a couple conversations where I talk about the various different use cases in both K-12 and then in higher ed, also in an academic medical center. I work with a lot of medical centers. The other one that really caught on to a lot of conversations around is in athletics. We have a really big partnership, obviously Surface with the NFL, also with the NBA now, and there's a huge conversation between Teams and Surface. So a lot of higher ed athletic departments are asking us questions about how to leverage Surface plus M365. And I think that's probably the biggest point I want to hammer home. And Troy's going to talk about this a little bit and how they're really hammering on the investment they're making in M365 and bringing that to life on Surface. All of our software is tested on our hardware first. And there are a lot of components that you can really trust, especially from a security standpoint, that really make our devices stand out. But without further ado, I want to make sure that Troy gets plenty of time to talk because he's got a lot to say. So I'll make sure that you guys get these if you want this content afterwards, and feel free to reach out to me afterwards. I can connect you to any of my other teammates that you might work with. But man, it's awesome to be on this. I want to do this more often. So I will definitely join your calls more often, Dave.
Thanks, Kristin. You bet.
I will pass it to Troy now. Troy, I'm just kind of gonna tee it up to you to talk about your transformation at Queens. Talk about where you've come from and how you've what your goals are and all the good stuff. Take you off mute.
It would help if I wasn't muted. First, my goals are still to hunt Greg Denon in Fallout. I still have this severe crave to hunt him down in this game and enjoy myself. But before I get too terribly far in this, I wanted to show about a 1-minute video clip. My fingers are crossed; it'll work right. It's something. Yeah, it's kind of a teaser to dragging my college into the cloud, specifically Microsoft 365. So my fingers are crossed. This is going to play right. If it does not, I will also toss in the YouTube link so you guys can watch it at your leisure.
Instant access to information makes us less self-sufficient. Do not improve. Do not change. Technology advancement is the enemy. Innovation is the change we do not need. Error, disk allocation, unfound. Reboot system, reboot system, reboot system. Innovation is the change we do not change. We do not change. We believe that
So as I tossed the YouTube link in there, it's a part one of a roughly a 10-part series that we're putting together. With this is to try to get the college, the faculty, and all bought into moving to the cloud. We've had several challenges. We say from data center crashes to I cannot tell you how many times Con Ed has caused challenges from dirty power coming through the system, UPS is failing. The day in the life of playing CIO is you have to figure out how to get past some of that stuff. So after a few conversations with some key people at Microsoft and us toying around with it, we finally decided to make this move into the cloud. Now, one of the neat ways that made our life really interesting to this during COVID was, it surprisingly happened to actually be a Surface, is I was trying to show that we needed an easier way to do this. The students needed better devices, the faculty needed better devices. So I felt really horrible. At the beginning, I gave some older devices out without cameras and microphones built in. It's all I had in inventory. So we started running around trying to figure out how we're going to do this, how we're going to do this. Then a couple demo pieces came through. The biggest challenge that we had was it was a personal pet peeve of mine was I like the general Surface. The product is pretty solid, but then it's the flimsy keyboard is driving me nuts. If you want to sit with it on your lap, the keyboard is a little awkward, but then taking it off, run around, do some neat things with it as a tablet. I knew that wasn't going to fit the need totally. So we started doing some investigation with some of the faculty, what they were wanting. They wanted something that had some pretty powerful workhorse abilities, say from similar to like the Apple MacBook, but they didn't want to pay that crazy price, but they didn't need that kind of power either, but they wanted to stay on Windows. So we threw out a couple of demo units to people because we bought a handful, sent it to them, and they got really excited. The feedback came back, I was like, can you buy a bunch of these? Like, well, let me see what I can come up with. So we'll say 200, I think 200 or 250 devices later, I can't seem to get rid of them fast enough to that point of where they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. Now, the fun part that we had to make this decision on was how big of the hard drive to chase. So we're talking back with Microsoft trying to sort out, do you get the 128? Do you get the 256? Do you get the 512? But then I thought it's like this was actually going to defeat the purpose of what I was trying to accomplish, was getting the college into the cloud. And I don't remember if it was Adam Reed, if it was Kristin or Kim or Greg mentioned something just like, well, just use OneDrive. So it was just that obvious thing that just kind of hit me, from them. It's like, yeah, I should have done this myself and thought about using OneDrive. But it actually made our life a whole lot easier. I was able to purchase a bunch more because of that and start teaching them OneDrive. And students to go on this route for the pushing of their data. And then it actually gave us another, hey, for this a marketing tool, say, by the way, if we're doing it this way, guess what? You could put all of your teaching tools, here OneDrive. Let's get you to operate directly in this manner instead. And that really went over extremely well. But then I started getting some more challenges from a couple of the faculty members. I said, well, we really want to start pushing some more of the distance ed stuff after COVID. And it's like, okay, this is kind of awesome that we're all thinking past COVID now. We know we're sitting in this pandemic and it is what it is. But we always have to, from you guys get this from a technology standpoint, stay 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of everyone else, if at all humanly possible. And since we've been lucky enough to start dragging the faculty and the college into the cloud from an ancient system, it's starting to work out, specifically with Teams. Teams, and it's become this interesting catalyst, for us in moving forward. Is we're in the process of right now of migrating away from an old, what I like to call ancient Avaya system that I can only find parts if I'm lucky, fourth or fifth hand from Avaya. And I was like, oh gosh, you got to be kidding me. And then maybe eBay will have it for you. So we decided to take that leap and move literally our entire phone system, into Teams, into the cloud. So there's been some fun challenges with doing that, but it was actually not as complicated of a process as I actually thought it was going to be, because the faculty already bought into this whole 365 concept. And then even down to that point where you'd see some of the math professors who only want chalk, on a blackboard. Is like, oh gosh, how do you get them bought in? So one of the video clips I stumbled across was actually the hub. I said, can we do this way? So the idea that we've come up with is converting a couple of our conference rooms into miniature distance ed rooms. The faculty member can come in, teach, have the hub on the back end. They walk in using, the Gen 1, Gen 2 version of the Surface, where you just have the tablet and the pen. And they were starting to write with this. Like, this is really neat. And the neat part is I didn't need all this extra toys added to it. I didn't need the extra Crestron equipment. It just magically worked. So seeing how this can play out is they started saying, well, if I can go from a Surface and the recordings on the hub, I have the streaming capabilities, and I'm streaming this now through Teams. I even had a group from our sociology department go so much further than what I ever anticipated. They jumped in and said, how do we do this? We're using Teams as an LMS. And I'm saying, like, of course you are. Of course. And how do you support us more? Do it. It's like, we're not ready to support you for this. And it was so exciting to see them taking several steps ahead of my IT unit, to just jumping in, and then they're teaching us tricks. It's like, oh, did you know that you could do X, Y, and Z? It's like, oh, yes. Now I'm sitting over here Googling. It's like, yes, ooh, they can do this. And so we started seeing how they were adopting just in general the Surface products across the board to make their lives a lot easier. And they really, really fell in love with the concept of what the hub can do. But then I started showing them, well, have you guys looked at processing this, through, say, perhaps a way through Azure, because I don't have the data capacity or the horsepower in the data center to do some of this big data stuff. So we started dropping down with them to do some of this analytical crunching. It's maybe by the fall 21, after we get a little further down this path, is using Azure as this data crunching for this particular sociology department for what they're doing, because their big data is actually kind of scary, and I'm actually depressed that I don't have the on-campus horsepower to pull off some of the stuff that they're wanting to do. And then jumping into showing how they're transitioning distance ed and using, at the moment, our poison of choice happens to be Blackboard. If they did, there's like, well, it doesn't do everything that we need. And then seeing how they've taken these various products like OneNote. It's a look what our students are collaborating on. How do I get more students into this particular tenant? Because at the moment our students are in a tenant, faculty and staff are in a separate tenant. So having to bridge the guest components where a student always happens to be a part of a particular team, it's made our life a little complicated, but we've been slowly working through it and actually getting some help from some faculty that knew a little more than what, hey, put it this way, even our our IT crew knew. We're learning as fast as we could and trying to keep the lights on going. But it was fun to see how the faculty were being way more creative than what we were. And yes, I agree with the beating your head on the door with the Blackboard, because boy, that's a depressing product. Very, very painful. That's why this particular department just grabbed Teams and went nuts with it. And they were so more creative than what I thought that they were going to be, especially from a pedagogical standpoint. I'm hoping to get some more information on that particular course at the end of the semester to share what they were able to pull off. From the recording to something as we'll say, the taboo word where I kept getting was like, Zoom doesn't do live captioning. I was like, well, guess what? Teams does live captioning. Now check this out. So it was really entertaining to see how Teams kept being a couple steps ahead of Zoom. And when my provost, she came back and said, we have a student that has a disability, they can't hear. It's like, I have a tool for this. And it was funny to see, I'll say some of the diehard converts move over to using some of the Microsoft products like this, because I was really excited to see the value that they were getting, and the value from the distance education standpoint from the way we're operating, because we're still right now we're running at a 99% online model only, and the ease of this has been fun. I'll say that's kind of the big gist of what we're doing. It's been fun. Microsoft has probably been the best strategic partner I could have ever asked for, for this project that we're doing. And then just this transitioning to the cloud's been fun, but a little scary. My running joke with a handful of people on my team and various others, particularly our president, is, hey, I'm building the plane as we're flying it. Right now we have a V1 in it. The goal is to get a V12. we're getting this sorted out. But it's pretty awesome to see the impact that we've been having with everybody. So that's what I got to say right now.
That's a great story. I love the energy, Kristin, that Troy always brings to the conversation. So, a couple just questions, and then I am going to wrap it up at 5, because I think I'm supposed to be speaking on another panel to a bunch of students over at CUNY, as I was mentioning earlier. But Troy, when you think about you're building that plane, right, while you're flying it, did the plane ever crash? And how do you kind of resurrect that trust, right, with your user community?
Surprisingly, the plane has not crashed yet. I'm going to put yet, because there will be a hiccup at some point. But it's the part that I know that we're not alone. And that says I feel like there's such an awesome community here that where I can reach out and say, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Can someone give me a hand? Or we've come across this problem, and there's such a strong group floating around that can give each of us a hand. Where we have struggle at. So.
Awesome. That's really appreciate you taking the time today. So love the story, both devices and transformation. And I know there's a whole story here that Troy isn't sharing quite as much, where there's a large organization, right? And he's a small part of that organization. While how many students do you have at Queens?
Roughly 22,000 students. The CUNY system itself is around 250,000 students. So I happen to lead what I like to say the premier college within the system itself. There's only one other college, awesome. Lehman, which is about the same size.
So there's this whole other organization, right, that's supporting you both from an IT perspective, and then there's a larger governance conversation that's always going on. So trying to figure out that ability to still have agility and yet work within a larger organization is always challenging. I think my video might be getting a little wonky, but I think you've done a great job at balancing that, and we really appreciate you coming on office hours. Kristin, you as well, and really love what the Surface devices. If you have questions, put them in the channel, and we'll get back to them. But this has been great. Really appreciate it. And if you can get me a duo.
Look at it, Dave. Kristin. She has it right there. Oh, Troy has one too.
And Troy, where did you get that one?
The Microsoft store.
He bought it.
Okay. I was like, man, if Kristin got you one of those. All righty. Well, hey, listen, I'm going to stop recording. If anybody has any questions for Troy or for